Let's begin in our imagination. I'm going to invite you to participate, okay? In a second, I'm going to ask you to create a full mind picture of a ritual that you have participated in, okay? I mean, formal rituals often come to mind, things like weddings and funerals, because those are like the doozies. But we actually have little rituals that are part of everyday life. I mean, there's coffee rituals, of course. But we have rites of passage for birthdays and anniversaries. Maybe you have weekly rituals that you participate in that are related to your faith or your culture. And if you have children, I know you have ritual, because ritual is actually an extension of play. There are bedtime rituals, there's the tooth fairy, and then there's those special things that we do when we go camping. So I just invite you to recall a time when you participated in a ritual, a big one, like a life-changing one, or one of those other daily kinds of rituals. Get that picture in your head and develop it fully. I need you to develop it fully because I'm a mind reader. Not really, but I'm going to try. So you got your picture? I have a hunch that in this picture in your mind, you are not alone. There are other people there with you. I have a hunch that in this picture, this ritual that you're participating in, there is a story being told. There are significant words. Maybe there's a designated speaker or a formal script. Or maybe there's a script that goes back and forth between a parent and a kid. I love you to the moon. I love you to the stars. Maybe there's some, or maybe the words are carried in a song. Maybe there's a song that goes with that ritual, and that sort of captures everything. Or maybe the words are less significant because there's a symbol that's present. And that symbol is like a shortcut to everything that event means. I have one last hunch. I have a hunch that when you're finished participating in that ritual, when you're done, you're different. Something about your participation in that event, big or small, changes you. If you answered yes to any of these things, you're not alone, it told a story, or you feel different after you've participated, I invite you to raise your hand. Awesome. I'm a data collector. Put your hands down. We've just proven ritual theory. Anthropology describes ritual as an invisible room. It's like a room it's like a porch. You're not quite outside, you're not quite in, you're in this space between spaces, or a time that's set apart from other time. These are the origins of the words once upon a time. It's that magical, suspended in-between space. And because of that in-betweenness, magical things can happen. The magic of belonging, the magic of story, and the magic of change. We are here on a journey to hope. If being alone, or even feeling alone, contributes to our despair, and ritual is somehow this way of bringing us together, then maybe ritual is a reliable pathway to hope. Just a proposal. And if not being able to tell our story, when that story gets stuck, if that leads to our despair, and ritual and symbol are somehow shortcuts to communication, then maybe this is a pathway to hope. There's so many reasons why our stories get stuck. Trauma, for starters, is often so disorienting that the language we have used our entire life suddenly fails. It just doesn't work anymore. I've always used the word sad and heartbroken until I lost a child, and now that doesn't work anymore. It doesn't even begin to capture my heartache. Or perhaps we've conspired to keep a secret. There's the public version and then there's the secret version. How many suicides have occurred as the result of not being able to talk? Feeling that story choked off in our throat, thinking somehow that nobody's going to believe us anyway. It's dangerous not to tell our story. Or maybe we're just too little. I mean, there's no frame of reference for a 5-year-old who's just been told that their daddy isn't coming home. Right? How does a little kid, I'm a school counselor, how does a little kid talk about that? The story gets stuck until you give them a crayon or a pipe cleaner or clay, and then the symbol takes shape and it tells the story. Maybe that's a pathway to hope. And if chaos, mental chaos, emotional turmoil, upheaval, if that leads to our despair, physical chaos, the chaos of pain and suffering, medical chaos, the chaos of cancer or HIV/AIDS, if that leads to our despair, and ritual somehow has an organizing effect, ritual creates order, you said that earlier, then maybe ritual is a pathway to hope. We're here on that journey. As a former minister, I have had the opportunity to travel with many people through grief and loss. In a seminary class on funeral preparation, we were taught never to prescribe symbols to a grieving family. That's their job. It is our job to wait and listen and watch. And when the symbol of that family reveals itself, the ceremony just naturally takes shape around it. And so it is how I have preached from Scripture, but also from Robert Munch and from Bon Jovi. But what is a symbol? What's a symbol? I had to laugh one day. I was with some deacons in the church kitchen, and we were preparing to serve communion to the congregation. And the very bread that I was cubing to serve to the congregation was the bread that I had put in my toaster. Bread is just bread until somebody calls it communion. Water is just water until somebody calls it baptism. It comes out of the tap. An oil splat. It's just another oil splat on a rig until the son says, Mom, I think I found some hope in this shitty situation. And then it becomes an icon to a family. We are symbolically literate. We have that literacy because we live in an age of technology. Symbols, right? When you open your phone, what's the first thing you see? You see a whole screen full of symbols. And what do we expect? We touch them. We handle them. It activates an invisible, magical process, an unseen process that brings something to life. Social and emotional symbols work exactly the same way. You know you have touched an icon when you see someone's tattoo and you go, hey, what's that about? And it activates this 15-minute story about why they got it and what it means. It's an icon, it's a symbol. We speak that language. For our purposes today, I'm going to define ritual as a symbol in motion. The ritual that I imagined in our opening exercise was Canada Day. I can probably tell you where I've been every July 1st for the last 15 years, not because I have a great memory, but because there's a ritual. And the ritual tells me where I'll be and who I'll be with and what I'm likely to be doing. My mom is going to pack a picnic in a red metal cooler. My dad's going to pack the green check blanket. We're going to watch the parade from the corner of Cheadle and 2nd. And then we're going to go to Elmwood Park and have a picnic, and my dad's going to have a nap under a tree. Am I wrong? My parents are here. I know, there's a ritual. The ritual reminds me, my mother reminds me where I'm supposed to be. It satisfies all of ritual's criteria for me. I know where I belong on that day. I belong with them. Not only do I belong to my family, I belong to Canada on that day. I'm wearing red shorts and a white t-shirt. I am a symbol in motion. That day, our anthem tells our story. The ritual communicates the Canadian story. And as someone who works in education, Canada Day is my porch. I step into that day, I leave behind the chaos of my school year. I step into that day, I let it work its magic, and when I step out, I'm standing in my summer. It meets all of ritual's criteria for me. I broke tradition this year on Canada Day. Sorry, Mom. I was alone, which makes the text that I got a little extra scary because I was by myself. And the text said, "Come quickly. She's leaving us. She's leaving us means that she's dying. And come quickly means that it's happening fast. Cancer has its own clock. So does grief. So does trauma. The rest of the world continues to function by that other clock. WestJet still expects you to use it. But there's this other clock that's ticking." How many speakers here today mentioned time? Did you notice that? The time that the police officer showed up, the day, the before and after, it's newly orienting. In cancer, there's this clock. There's the time between and an appointment and the test and the results and the intervention and the effect, the remission, and apparently the recurrence. 2 weeks earlier, my partner's mom had been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and now she had been rushed to the cardiac care unit in Abbotsford. I beat the cancer clock, but just by 6 days. When I arrived on the unit, the double doors were closed and they opened automatically. But it had that feeling of magic. They opened as if by magic. It's not insignificant because ritual is a doorway and magic can happen inside. And the first thing that I noticed was the nurse's station. It was round. Rituals love round. Round tree skirts, round birthday cakes, round wedding bands, circles of people supporting one another. Rituals love round. And right next to the nurse's station were the guardians. And that was my clue that I was in the presence of a ritual, of a magical space, because rituals need guardians. They have 2 roles: leadership and protection. Now, why would protection be necessary for a ritual? The answer is because the people who are participating are intensely vulnerable. They are soft. 8 seconds ago, they were standing on solid ground. They were rock solid. They were sure. They were secure. They knew what they were about and where they were going, and now all of that is different. They are soft and impressionable, which means that anything that comes in contact with them, even well-intended words, even well-intended food, can leave its mark. So there's guardians that come forward and serve as protectors on the outer circles so that those who are in the sacred center stay safe. These guardians were wearing scrubs and stethoscopes. They gestured me to the room where I needed to go. But I think I actually knew where to go. When I entered the room, I walked around the curtain and I found a more intimate circle of guardians. It was made up of siblings and children and a granddaughter and their partners. And just like the double doors, that circle opened and invited me in. I had arrived at the sacred center, and her name is Norma. On our first opportunity to be alone, Norma startled me because she took off her mask. She moved her mask from her chin, from her nose to her chin, and she took my arm and she looked me right in the eyes and she said, "I am scared shitless. Oh dear. I believe in love. I believe in family. I believe in science. Some days I even believe in prayer." All that week, I wondered, is she eligible for magic? Can this magic take away stage 4 cancer? Because she's scared shitless, and I think something needs to be done about that. All week, I felt auditioned. She knew my background in congregational ministry, and I felt like she was watching somehow. And on the third day that I was there, Norma looked at me and she said, "You've got one prayer." She had a great sense of humor. It's okay to laugh. And I didn't know what she meant. I was like now or later, or what did you have in mind? And she said, "No, now." So her oldest sister, who sort of orchestrated everything, was like, quick, Carmen's gonna pray. So we made a circle, and I prayed, but who am I? Am I some sort of a vessel? Am I worthy? Am I doing it the right way? Does it work? I didn't know, but I did. Amen. We were done. That day, Norma's daughter was standing at the foot end of her bed, Shelley. And Norma asked if maybe Shelley could put lotion on her feet. So we found some, just hospital lotion in a plain bottle, unscented. Shelley squirted it into her palms, and she started to rub them together, I assumed just to warm it up. But when she did this, something shifted in the room. Norma became alert and attentive, and the people who were sitting on the chairs on the outside of the room suddenly stood and formed a circle until 11 of us were standing around the bed. And I knew Norma was about to say something saucy because her eyebrow went up and she smirked. Shelley started applying it to her legs and her feet, and Norma said, "You know that's love cream, don't you?" You know what just happened there, right? That's the birth of a symbol. Bread is just bread until someone calls it communion. And because I speak that language, I said to her, "Where would you like it?" Norma said, "Everywhere." Now, if it was just lotion, everywhere would mean all over her body. But it was no longer lotion. It was love cream. And Norma wants love everywhere, all over her family, all over Abbotsford, all over Moose Jaw. And so Shelley squirted it into the hands next to her, and in the hands next to her, until we were all anointed, not with lotion, but with love. We were connected in a circle. 17 years earlier, Norma lost the love of her life in an accident. His name was John, but everyone knew him only as Bunny. On the morning of July 7th, Norma announced that today would be her last. The rituals of medicine were suspended, and the rituals of love were accelerated. All that week, there were little bush bunnies that would play on the grass outside of her window, and we developed a ritual where whoever was closest to the window would report to her how many were there, what they were doing, and she delighted in that. On her first opportunity to be alone that day, she put her hand on my arm and she said, "I need you to know that I'm not scared anymore." Ritual had worked its magic. You see, that day a bunny came and stayed. Bread is just bread until someone calls it communion. And a bunny is just a bunny until it's your husband and he's calling you home.